As a part of 75th year of India's independence celebration, known as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we at SPIESR are organizing a lecture series on India at 75. This lecture series is our best effort to understand, discuss, and debate India's development progress, its future challenges. It is our great privilege to have Professor Mohanty with us to talk on a very important, very pertinent issue, trends and implications of multidimensional poverty in India. This issue of multidimensional poverty gains much more important in the background of non-availability of consumer expenditure data, which used to be the most important data set to estimate the poverty in our country. Professor Sanjay Kumar Mohanty is a trained economist and demographer and working in the field of population health and development. Currently, Dr. Mohanty is working as professor at International Institute of Population Science, Mumbai. He has 16 years of teaching and research experience, and he has guided nearly 30 PhD students. Dr. Mohanty was CR Parekh Fellow 2019 at ECR Research Center of Economics and Visiting Scientist at Harvard School of Public Health during September 2014 to August 2015. He has authored more than 60 research papers in international and industrial peer-reviewed journals. His research interests include economics of health and healthcare, maternal and child health, multidimensional poverty, and exploring the complex relationship of poverty, inequality, and health in India. Professor Mohanty received his PhD in Population Studies and Master in Population Science from International Institute of Population Science, Mumbai, MA in Economics from Hyderabad Central University, and Bachelor of Arts from Utkal University, Odisha. So it's our great privilege to have you, sir. So now I request Professor Niti Mehta to chair this discussion. And
good morning, Professor Mohanty. Indeed, a very warm welcome to you to the Sardar Patel Institute and to the series of lectures that we are conducting. A warm welcome to the other distinguished participants as well as the participants of the capacity building program that we are undergoing, and my colleague both in the institute and outside the institute from Gujarat and Ahmedabad. So it is indeed a pleasure, sir, to have you here to speak on this very important dimension, and which has considerable importance both from the methodological point of view as well as from the kind of implications that the findings has on policy making. From the methodological point of view, because as was mentioned by Dr. Shukla, we are facing this dearth of consumption expenditure surveys, which were the important source of assessing poverty so far. So I think we need to go beyond consumption expenditure surveys and go beyond that and look at different aspects from multifarious viewpoints and assess that what is the level of deprivation in our society, and accordingly tackle that with the due policy support. So I think in that context, this methodology and this way of looking at the distribution debate is something which is very important and pertinent now, given the data constraints that we are all facing. So in that context, I think we are very happy that you have agreed to our request, and we hope that your lecture on trends and implications of multidimensional poverty would be really illuminating for the entire community of social scientists who are there in Gujarat and who are also there attending this lecture amidst us. So without wasting much time, I think I would request you to proceed with your lecture, and as we learn from your insights, I'm sure the participants would have numerous questions and clarifications as well as comments to make. So I welcome everybody, and I would now invite Professor Mohanty to go ahead with this lecture.
Okay, let me thank. Am I audible?
Sir, yes. You are audible.
Okay, so let me thank Professor Mehta and other faculty and Dr. Bachaspati Shukla for giving me this opportunity to present before you a work which I am involved for more than a decade. So this is also is very much pertinent, as you have said, because it is also endorsed by NITI Aayog. So one of the key feature of multidimensional poverty is it has entered the door of NITI Aayog. So, and now in this context, so I know what are the because and so I chose to keep this title as trends and implications because now we have these numbers for over almost 15 years, and so that gives us an idea about what is happening to these trends. And I know based on these trends, so what next is the implications. So my lecture will be basically in two parts. So one is I'm not sure because this is of course this is a very common term now, because on and often in a common man see this concept in newspaper, television, and so and so. But in the same time, I thought of a little focusing on the methodological aspect, concept and the context behind this. So then I will put you some of the empirics. So what is available with the best reliable sources. So then what are the way forward? So maybe that I can learn from all of you. So this is the this is my broadly I will be putting for that. So I will be sharing my screen. So please let me know if it is visible. So it is saying me.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Visible. Okay. So this is what is a of course not necessarily I will touch everything, but this is broadly a outline. What I would like to talk about. So is the why multidimensional poverty, what multidimensional poverty is. Of course, maybe for students, if they are, so that may be beneficial for them. Then how these are related to the SDGs. So then what is more critical is to know about what is global, know what goes inside global MPI and how does it is similar in terms of NITI Aayog's MPI. As I said, NITI Aayog has endorsed has published a report based on MPI. So basically to look into the dimensions, indicators, and what has been used. And there is a concept of of sensor and uncensored headcount ratio. So like we use in the consumption poverty. Then I will talk about the what is happening to the trends of multidimensional poverty in India, and then how it has been varying across the states, at least over a 3 period of time. So then we can have a discussion about what are these implications of these trends. Of course, there are issues. So this is all is with the measurement issues of these multidimensional poverty concepts, and then I will discuss about the strength and limitations of global MPI. So in a nutshell, this is the outline which I would be discussing for next 1 hour. So just I want to give a few contexts why it is critical, because all of us know whether it is a MDGs or SDGs. So is the eradication of poverty in all forms. So is a priority agenda. So it is from the global to local level. So even for so that is what we have been putting for. Now, as far as many developing countries concerned, so the official estimate of those poverties are basically money-metric poverty. So as you have said, and as we know in the Indian context, so we use the consumption data collected by the National Sample Survey to provide the estimates of poverty. But what is happening in the because since the human development perspective, so poverty is increasingly a conceptualized as a multidimensional space. And now, and with the, as I said, with the MDGs and SDGs, so multidimensional poverty has been integrated into global and national development agenda. Yeah, this is what is, for example, SDG 1 So begin with end poverty in all form and everywhere. So this is basically a sense of reduction of multidimensional poverty. Now, what is and many of these SDGs, you say these SDGs goals are directly or indirectly associated with multidimensional poverty. Now, so interestingly, so as we know, the Niti Aayog has identified, or the government of India has identified, so the called MPI, multidimensional poverty index, so like a composite index of SDI or and so as one of the 29 global monitoring indices. So the importance of these indicators has been more emphasized at the policy level. So we have this report. I hope many of you might have seen this, and it is openly downloadable. So known as the India's National Multidimensional Poverty Index. So what goes inside, and what basically my talks also will be featuring on that. So you can download it, and you can this report gives you the estimate based on the NFHS data, NFHS 4 data, of course, and that goes for the state as well as districts of India. Now, what is the from the theoretical perspective? So, as they know, this is the it begins with the capability approach. So, where the concept of multidimensional poverty begins with a sense capability approach as early as 1980s. So then it got a more robust beginning with the introduction of the Human Development Report. If you see this Human Development Paradigm, where we have a series of indices, and the Human Poverty Index also 1, Human Poverty Index 2, along with SDI and GDI are also featured as this is basically a kind of a multidimensional poverty. So the concept as such is not new, but the approach which has been recently put forward more by the OPHI, Oxford Poverty Human Development Initiative, is little in the newer perspective. Now, what is, so I wish to discuss about what is multidimensional poverty and why multidimensional poverty. So because and how it is different from the monometric poverty. So by definitions, multidimensional poverty measures multiple deprivations experienced by poor people simultaneously. So a person may be economically poor. He or she may also have very little or no education. He may or she may be suffering from chronic diseases or illness. So these are the multiple deprivations. So where people suffers from. So what happens in case of monometric poverty? So we only focus their consumption pattern and their consumption expenditure. We know what they consume, but we do not see their the non-monetary component such as education and health. So these are the components which are captured in the multidimensional poverty. So now multidimensional poverty can be because there is no no limit to what can be included in the multidimensional poverty. So these domains can be as many as large can be as large. For example, it can be on the economic domain, it can be on a health domain, it can be deprivation on education, it may be deprivation in basic services, and it may be also people living in a poor environment is a kind of a deprivation. So these, by definitions, so these concepts so involve so much broader domain and the various domains of this. So now defining what multidimensional poverty is, then why multidimensional poverty? Because as we said, so income is not enough. Income, is a necessary, but definitely not a sufficient condition to measure poverty. So focusing only one factor such as income is not enough to capture poverty. Now, the utility of multidimensional poverty is that it able to capture the disadvantages people experience in multiple range of different of life. Then also the empirics suggest that so the association of monetary and non-monetary poverty is not necessarily strong. So that means a person may be poor or a state may be good in monetary poverty, but might not be good in case of non-monetary poverty. So now multidimensional poverty can be broken down by geography, such as states and districts, or even smaller regions, depending on the availability of the data, and by different group of people. So, and monetary, and what is more needed is, so multidimensional poverty serves as a supplement or as a complement to consumption poverty, and not multidimensional poverty as a replacement to consumption poverty. So taking this into account, so one of the is to understand this is maybe to using this Venn diagram. So for example, if we say we are limiting this to three domains, let us say education, economic, and health. So there we can see both union as well as intersection. So initially, prior to 2010, the approach of defining multidimensional poverty was largely based on union and intersection approach. So you can find a large number of papers which published in World Development. So based on the union and intersection approach, so whether the commonality of these three or any two is an intersection. For example, a person is consumption poor, a person is education poor, so is a intersection approach, or a person is poor in any domain. So now the limitations of such estimates tends to be, so this is while union approach tends to make it larger, overestimate the numbers, the intersection approach tend to underestimate the number. So basically that was the one of the limitation of this approach, so which is generally taken into account, and this was in the earlier. Now, as I said, so this can be the multidimensional poverty can be in many domains. So, but what literature is now more specifying on the key domain of human development. So that is education, health, and so now what is the they are the three common domains usually we also see in the while measuring the human development progress in human development. You can find the similar concept and similar dimension mostly used in defining multidimensional. Now, how does it defines? It specifies poverty line for each dimension. So how do you define deprivations in education? How do you define deprivation in health? How do you define deprivation in standard of living? So taking all these three, so then how can these be summed up, or how this can be done is a kind of a multiple deprivations that will come into account. Then what do we see here? So we see some of the missing dimension. So the missing dimension, often we do not find these variables. So is in the which are no less than the domain which usually being covered. If you look into this, so they are the global player where we can see the multidimensional poverty initiative. So the Oxford Poverty Human Development Initiative, popularly known as OP. So if you go to their website, you can find a lot of readings, so including the reports, papers, state archive files, and the tables. So a lot of the readings you can find out in the OP website. So you can also see, and this is this is OP results usually is provided to estimate, and they are being disseminated by the UNDP. If you have seen the Human Development Report in the technical pages, you can find the estimate of poverty for different countries, and by the for last I think 5 years or more, these estimates are being. So even in World Bank also, which is largely in the which focus more on the monetary poverty, has acknowledged the role of multidimensional poverty. So in the global context. So now coming to this, what the multidimensional poverty index is. So it is basically it is a index, is a composite variables. So which is that is used to measure acute poverty for over 100 countries globally, because those are mostly the low and middle income countries, so for which these estimates are being provided. So now what it is, what it does is, so it complements the monetary poverty. Yeah. So now what is happening is, in case of this global MPI, so we also heard of this concept, what is known as the Alcaraz-Foster methodology. So this is what it drives in the estimations of the multidimensional poverty estimates, so popularly known as Alcaraz-Foster methodology. So I will briefly touch about that. So what it is and how does it helps in estimations of multidimensional poverty. So now, what is the one of the key features of what we see in case of multidimensional poverty is, so it basically in the current form is being estimated using from the microdata. So when because this estimation of MPI is largely contingent on use of microdata. So unlike when we have the HPI1 or HPI2 or even in SDI, so where we use a aggregate level data, but the MPI is largely derived using the microdata. So this microdata is again that is also more specifically confined to the DHS survey, which is known as Demographic and Health Survey. So as all of us know, DHS is the standard tool for over more than for many developing and low income countries, as a very authentic and reliable data source. And one of the advantages of DHS is that it uses the uniform instruments, so across the countries. So it collects some household informations. It also collects individual informations with more focus on mother and children. So what the OP does, so it has the advantages, and those data are also of high quality and available at free of cost. So these estimates are largely available for those countries where DHS data are available. And as far as India is concerned, so India is of great interest to academia, not only within the country but also from outside the country. So you can find that it is these Indian estimates are not only available from the NFHS, also some estimates are available from the India Human Development sources. And I personally believe that ISDS is a more appropriate data source, possibly to study or to understand the multidimensional. So now there is also the as all of you know, the NSS data also has a set of questions, some questions in the either in health survey or in consumption survey, but they are not adequate to measure the estimates of multidimensional poverty in Indian context. So now what it is? So now this is basically the methodology which is used in defining the global MPI. So what it does, as I said, so it takes 3 dimensions of deprivations in defining multidimensional poverty. So these dimensions are, as you can see here, is health, education, and standard of living. So now what it does, so then it in total it uses 10 indicators. So it uses a very simplified methodology. So the methodology is it gives equal weight to each domain, and it gives equal weight to the indicators within each domain. So in that sense, you can see that we have 3 domains. So the aggregate weightage of each domain is 1/3. So for education is 1/3, health is 1/3, and living standard is 1/3. Now under each domain, so there are, for example, under health, there are 2 indicators. say nutrition and child mortality. So each of them get a equal weight. So the weight assigned to the health women is 1/6 each. So now in the same way, since there are two variables under educations, this gets a weight of 1/6. Now coming to the living standards, so there are a number of variables. There is no direct economic variable such as consumption or income in the NFHS survey. So it uses rather a set of proxies, so which are housing structure, electricity, sanitation facilities, working fuel, and some of these assets. So in total, you can see it is considered 6 variables, and these are 1/3 divided by 6, which is gives a weight of 1/18 to each of these. So now in a nutshell, so this is used from the unit data. So the individuals are identified in the two-step process, where they are defined in terms of this weight being assigned to each of these indicators in defined deprivations. This is a big, of course, there are a lot of words, but this is necessary to know what exactly goes inside that. And now you can say that, for example, as we say, so the indicator which is used for the health women, it uses 2 components. So one component is for nutrition, and the other component is for child and adolescent mortality. So as far as nutrition is concerned, since these data are largely collected, a nutritional outcome of children, mother, men, and so this is so any person for whom 70 years of age, for which nutrition information is available, and if any individual in the household is either undernourished, so in terms of underweight, or in terms of stunting, or in terms of low BMI, so that is considered as deprived in nutrition. So now you can see here, so this is, so that indicator will get a weight of 1/6. Now similarly, if a household experiences a death of any child, so which is basically for children under 5 years, but since they are taking for the birth history file, because mother's informations birth are collected over a period of from their birth history, from her birth history. So they are taking for the if any child under 18 has died in the household in the 5 years preceding the birth. So this is what is the in case of to do reflect the education health room. Coming to education, there are 2 indicators which is again used. One is years of schooling, and the other one is school attendance. So years of schooling, as in the household structure, so every member's educational level is being marked in terms of years of schooling completed. So at least if any adult member who has not completed 6 years of schooling in a household, that means you imagine a household that has a member where none of these adult members has 6 years of schooling. So that household is said to be deprived in terms of years of schooling. Otherwise, that will not be deprived. Same way, if a child in the school going age is not attending school, so then that household is also said to be deprived in school attendance. Now, in terms of living standard, so these are the indicators which has been used, which is basically some housing characteristics. Household has asset and and electricity, and some kind of a basic services or basic facilities household has. So it is again, it is each of the variable is made as a dichotomous. So whether household has for example, has electricity or no electricity, whether the household has living in housing material is made up of furnished materials, any floor, roof or wall, so that will be a deprived one. So in this way, each of these indicator is being defined from the micro data, and these estimates are defined. So how does it say similar or different from the Niti Aayog estimates? So in a nutshell, so they are more or less similar, but there is a marginal change. So this change is here. You can see here in the health domain, the variable of antenatal care is being added. So there you can find in a health you have one more domain, 1/3. So you're then under this, which was child health was further segregated to maternal health and child health. So this weight is being defined in the similar. And they have also put one account, bank account having a household as a addition on that. However, adding these two indicators does not really make the differences to that large extent. But this is what is you can find in the NITI Aayog. Now, what does this method talks about? So this method is first, so core are identified in each weighted indicator because you define core, so so assign them a weight, so and they are called as the deprivations. So then what is done? Each indicator are aggregated across dimension with the weighted indicators. So now then they are summed off. So they are basically made in a dichotomous form 0 and 1, and this weight is being multiplied, and then they are summed it off when this cutoff point is more than 0.3. So we can say that the household is considered as multidimensionally poor. Otherwise, it is non-poor. So you can find the three concept often comes with this, so known as H, A, and MPI. So H is similar as a headcount ratio, as we know in case of consumption poverty. So what we see here is the incidence of multidimensional poor. So this is nothing but, so this is the number of multidimensional poor, which is Q numerator, and your denominator is the total population. So this is same as the headcount ratio. So this indicator basically gives you percentage who are multidimensionally poor. So now the second indicator comes is known as the intensity of poverty, or A. So this is basically calculated among those who are multidimensionally poor. So this is like a poverty gap ratio. How far poor people are from the poverty line. So that means those who are multidimensionally poor, so on average, so how, to what extent they are being deprived. So this is basically is known as intensity of poverty. So now multidimensional poverty index is basically is nothing but is a multiplication of H and I. So you have your incidence and multiply with depth. So that gives you what is known as the multidimensional poverty index. So now it is basically we'll further see how does this interpretation comes with a number. So basically, for example, the latest estimate, if you look for the India's context, so from the 2019 to 21, so the OPHI also is very prompt in updating every year these estimates. So you can see here the H, which is a multidimensional poor. So for India stands at 16.4. So which simple says that 16% of population in our country are multidimensionally poor. This is the estimate by OP. So this is not, second, so the estimate of A, which says 42, that means, so among those who are multidimensionally poor, the average person is deprived in 42% of the weighted indicators. So this is what is the interpretation for A. So then the third variable which is often used is the MPI, which is the product of H and A. So when we see MPI for 0.6069 for the country, so that means saying that poor people are deprived in 7% of the total potential deprivations it could experience. So these three indicators are often used. So in the empirical analysis, and when you will see H, A, and MPI, so how does they vary across geographical region, such as states and districts, how H varies, how A varies, and how MPI varies, and how does they vary across different structure of the populations, including male and female, including different caste group, religion group, and so on. So these are basically what we often see, and you can see here in last decades. So there are possibly on every day you can find a paper on multidimensional poverty. So and maybe in every month or every 2 months one paper from Indian context as well. So there are large number of studies which is also been documented from the India as well on the estimations of multidimensional poverty. One of the advantages of this index is that it could able to say what is the extent of what is the contribution of various the indicators you have taken to the overall level of poverty. So it gives you from the policy perspective, it gives a sense that this is the which domain is progressing slow and where possibly the investment is more warranted. So that's the advantages of this concept. So these are all theoretical aspects of the estimation of material poverty. So now I will take you to some of the numbers and how these numbers are readings for the country and for the different states of India. If you look into this, so I begin with, as I said, it is basically for the low and middle income countries. So I chose to put some of these Asian countries, including China, to look into the what the estimates are, and these are taken from the most recent estimate of 2022. You can see here the global multidimensional poverty report. You can download that as well. And the survey years are not far ahead for each of the country, so they are very close by. So maybe they are comparable. So and for our country, India, so our latest estimate is for because as I said, these are largely contingent or based on the DHS data, and in our case, it is the NFHS data. So you can see here, this is for the 2019 and 21. The estimate which is for the country for India was as close to 16%. But if you the relatively better a country is in terms of economic performance, you can see here the multidimensional poverty is relatively much lower. So it is just 4% in China and 4% in Indonesia, and it is higher in case of Bangladesh and and this is the other indicator you can see here. What I have put is for the same set of countries. So I also added the indicator of A, so which is the intensity of poverty. So we do not see much of the variation in the intensity of poverty. So irrespective of the level of multidimensional. So in most of these countries where even the level is low, for example in Indonesia or China, you can see that the intensity is also equally a relatively high number, which is that means poor people are deprived in almost 40% of the indicators where they are being measured. And these numbers are also similar in case of India or in Bangladesh, a little higher in context of the Pakistan. And the often you will find these numbers. So this is just like a human development index varying from 0 to 1. The closer the value to 0, the lower is the multidimensional poverty index or multidimensional poverty, and the higher the value to the closer the value to 1, the higher is the degree of multidimensional. So you can see here the range of multidimensional poverty is also varying. The MPI, popularly known as MPI. So the MPI index varies from 0.01 in Indonesia to as high as 0.20 in case of Pakistan. Now, what is happening to India? This is what is about. So the trends we are more interested to see. So what is happening to these trends over last 16 years from 2005 to 21? You can ask why 2005 and 21? Why not in this period? Yes, because these are the three benchmark periods for which we have the NFHS data set, and mostly these multidimensional poverty estimates are derived from the NFHS data. So now I just know it is quite impressive to look into this. So when we look at these numbers, so it is really quite satisfying. But if you see in 2005 and 6, so more than half of the population of the country were multidimensional poor, and these are based on the similar methodology or comparable estimate over a period of time. So the indicator has not changed, keeping the same indicators you can see here, And when you look into 2015 to 16, so it has reduced by almost half. And the further also there was a reduction, and by 19 and 21, despite a COVID era, so we see that this is a reduce. This is the level of multidimensional poverty has come already to a lower level now, so to a 16%. Now, if you translate it in terms of annual reduction, so how does it matters? Yes, so when I just put it average annual reduction from 5 to 15, so it was almost a 2.7. So when you say average annual reduction from 15 to 20, it was 2.3. Of course, maybe the justification is in the earlier phase, the level was high, so that the reduction was little faster. But in the later period also, it continued to decline. So, and over the period, we can see that the average annual reduction is 2.6. So now, is it the method to be complacent and say that yes, we are all good? But yes, if you go by this definition, it seems very good, all good. So, but what is good and what is not good? Maybe we can more see on that. But this is how the numbers talks about. So now, if the further that was the value of H, and here if you look into the intensity of poverty, there was a quite good decline from 51 to 44, and further it has reached to the 42. And in terms of MPI index, you can see here the MPI index value has declined from 0.28 to almost 0.7 by 2019 and 20. So because if H declines, so obviously MPI is declining, and the A is of course relatively, this reduction in A is not that fast as that of the other indicators are. Now, how does it see across the states of India? So is one of these very interesting look into, because India is heterogeneous, and no analysis is complete without a regional analysis. So one may look into that. How does it is happening? So what is happening to these trends of multidimensional poverty in the states of India? So I prefer to make it a better presentable. So I prefer to give the major states of India that accounts over 95% of India's population. So if you look into this, so you can see here, there has been almost every state. So there has been a remarkable decline in the extent of multidimensional. So it was highest in the state of Bihar, Jharkhand, almost as high as 75%. So these are arranged in terms of ascending order of H values in 2005 and 6. That's the best year. And if you see the green value here, so that's the recent one. So what we see here, there has been a reduction, quite a significant reduction, and this reduction was much faster in the poorer states. And then what we find now, what is happening on the left side of the panel? So the left side of the panel is basically the more urbanized and more developed states of India. So if you see the states like Kerala, Delhi, Goa, Punjab, those are relatively much better. And for example, say Kerala, so it was almost 13% in 2005 and 6. So which is almost remained to less than 1% in both the period of latter two periods. So now this is what is on the we can see the heterogeneity when the same method is applied across the states of India. So you can even see a larger variability when it goes to for the districts of India, because our districts are so much large. There are 700 707 districts, so which are perfect laboratory to understand the variability in developmental indices. You can also see this interesting phenomena what we have presented there. It was a point estimates, but what you can see here is a range estimates. So which is we are moving from red to green. So as we see here, so in terms of multidimensional poverty, there has been a substantial reduction, and this was this more red and red patches are vanishing. So which is a level of high multidimensional poverty, which range is more than 45. And you can see here even the next color is 3245, and which is almost absent by the recent estimates. So now, how does this MPI varies? So yes, so it follows the trend. So as you see in case of H, the pattern of MPI is also similar as that of the H values. The similar inference, similar pattern we see between of this. So now this is how also the looking at the multidimensional poverty indices. So index, which is often we use. So this is you can see here. So how it is, the low is basically the greenery, the southern states less than 0.05, and you can see the next is medium range. Most of the states are in that range now. So in a nutshell, there has been a substantial decline. So since I am speaking to a larger the audience from the Gujarat, because since such estimates are also available for the states of India, I know this is of course the 2019-21 estimate is not OPHI estimates, but I put the same methodology and I estimate myself, including these maps and for the 2019 to 20, and for other two periods I have taken from the OPHI estimates. So this is if you further look at here, so you can see here this is there is quite a good variation in the competitive index of multidimensional poverty, which ranges from all of we know the Ahmedabad, the capital of the state, as low as 6% of the multidimensional poor, and it is much more higher in the tribal belt, which is as high as almost 40%. So you can see a larger variation in the multidimensional poverty in the districts of Gujarat, and this pattern is similar across the states of India. And this is from the 2019-21 estimates. So now looking into the pattern follows for the MPI, as you see. So this is the as high as 0.23. Not only the head count, but also intensity is higher in the relatively backward districts of the state, and it is lower in the better off states. Now this is I put what are the strengths, what are the limitations, and what are the implications, because whether that is one size fits for all, I mean a kind of phenomenon. So what are the strengths and what are the limitations? So if you look into the strength, so you can see that it has a merit of moving beyond monetary poverty. It able to capture the multiple deprivations people have in their daily life. Now, what are these limitations? So the limitations is, so they are not consistent. I mean, there has been some changes in the modifications in the indicators, but of course the point what I put for here is using the uniform methodology. So now, and then this is the one of the point is, how do I classify in the micro data a person as multidimensional poor or multidimensional non-poor? So it is based on a called a C vector. C vector is nothing but it is a summation of the all deprivations indicators, weighted deprivation indicators. So what we have seen that each indicators, they are turned to binary form 0 and 1. They are multiplied by weight. Then they are being summed up. If your sum of the score is the 1 is deprived and 0 is not deprived, the closer if the value is more than 0.33, so then that is called as labeled as multidimensional poor. Now the question comes, how 0.33 comes? This is basically a normative concept. So the idea of putting the C vector cutoff point is a normative concept. So and that has been possibly one of the. So while the indicator has the advantages to look into the decomposition across indicators, you can able to see that what is contributing more to the extent of multidimensional poverty. That helps a good policy message, where we are moving faster and where we are moving slower, and it has the implications for resource allocations and in terms of its utility. However, so what we find, so these estimates tend to have a urban bias, and it is not able to capture the extent and nature of urban poverty, because we know urban poverty is much more complex. So then the simple phenomena what the multidimensional poverty is able to do. So it is while its strength is identifying those who are indicator for robust in defining multiple deprivation. So we see that so it is possible for a policymaker a multidimensional poverty of less than 1% or 2% or even less than 5% has not much to do with the really for the development of that region. So it's not able to capture the poverty in developed state of India. So while it uses individual data, as I said, the estimation of MPI is largely contingent on the use of individual microdata, and in the same time, this microdata is often limited to DHS data. So you do not find out the many alternative data sources which possibly have the estimations for this. So this is the this already I've told you. This is it measures the extent and intensity of poverty. It identifies the individuals deprived in multiple deprivation. It can be decomposable across groups, and it is a very effective tool for policy design. In the same time, it can be source impact over time. So now there is a concept what is called as censor and uncensored headcount ratio. So what is censor? Censor means this proportion of population or this percentage of population, they are multidimensionally poor, and also they are deprived in that indicators. We are using two concepts here. One is the deprivation and one is the poverty. Deprivation, when we say a person has or do not have, deprivation not necessarily translate to poverty. But when we say that censor headcount ratio, so it is the deprivations as it is a multidimensional poverty as well as deprivation. So when we see here, so for example, if I say here, so in case of nutrition, when I only look nutrition as an indicator, I find 38% of India's population has a person who is undernourished, either in terms of weight or in terms of height. But when we say that in terms of multidimensional poverty, so we find that so 21% of population are multidimensionally poor, as well as they are deprived in nutrition. So that's the censor. It's a more powerful indicator. So this indicator, even a small indicator like child mortality. So even it is a lower value like 2.2, but you say all those who are experiencing a child loss in the households are more likely to be multidimensional poor. So in that gives a message that so you cannot undermine these indicators. So even though its prevalence is low. So in the on the other hand, we can see here 59% are deprived in cooking fuel, but when it comes to multidimensional poverty, so only among all multidimensional poor, 26% are deprived in cooking fuel. So the other part they are not deprived. That's the difference between the censor and incense. So what you can do is you can beautifully present. You can see in the also in the different publications. So how these are the different contribution of this, as you say, so of different dimensions, indicators. You can look into this. The largest share is contributing to this poverty is by the nutrition component, and this was of course by the 15-16 data set, and I'm not sure there's been changed much further. This one. Yes, so just to highlight again, so this is the limitations. So it does not adequately capture the poverty in developed state of India. As you can see, for the many of these developed states has a very low level of multidimensional poverty. It also, the urban poverty. If you say further, I just wanted to say you these are the this is the for the districts of Maharashtra. On the left panel, you can see here those are the districts which are highly urbanized. So the more urbanized species, whether a state or region, possibly we can find a much lower of the extent of multidimensional poverty. But however, it is adequately captured possibly in the context of the. So now, if you will further to sum it up, so what we see here is reduction of multidimensional poverty is not uniform across states and regions. You can see here there are a lot of variability across states and regions in the estimates. So, and there is what possibly is needed is a area specific intervention need to be strengthened for further reduction in the levels. Then sensor headcount ratio is a useful tool to improve the well-being of the populations. As we have seen here, even the level is low, but it gives a very powerful message, as in case of child mortality. So in the then this is So this is level of multiracial poverty is low in developed states and districts of India. Possibly, we need not to rely only on one data source. This current data source does not adequately capture multiracial poverty, and to need to devise more on the state-specific estimates. And there is no logic to put that only to confine, because these global dimensions and indicators are indicative. So that is more used for a broader global comparative picture. But as when you are defining at the national and regional level, this possibly can be done. So according to this, so if you want to improve further, possibly, so there is a more and more domain can be added. So particularly remaining the first domain which is already there. So the domain like unemployment and environment, basic services cannot be rolled out. So in devising the. So these are the this is to essentially multiracial poverty can supplement the consumption poverty. So then the estimate of multiracial poverty, this is, and these indicators can be more of context or state specific. And then this is data gap in measuring multiracial poverty may be. So this is these are some of my work on the multiracial poverty, which is available. The one of the recent is I wrote a note about the NITI Aayog's multiracial poverty index. So some of these points which I highlighted, I put it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty, for a very detailed description of the methodology, and the lecture was definitely very informative, and it really clearly showed how as researchers we can approach this method of assessing poor. And it is very clear that this approach to poverty estimation is much more conducive to policy interventions rather than having an aggregate poverty figure. I think if we know that multidimensional deprivations, it is much more amenable to the formation of poverty policies for the sectoral level. So I think in that context, you really unraveled the entire dynamics which go into the formulation of this, and it was quite revealing for us. So I think now the floor is open for any comments, discussion. And let me take this opportunity to welcome Professor Amita Shah, Dr. Indira Hire, Professor Rao, Dr. Brahmanand. So now this floor is open for discussion, and we would, I'm sure Professor Mohanty would like to take up a few questions and comments from the participants.
Sure.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. I think it was certainly very, very enlightening presentation. And I'm also very happy that you could find out, I mean, you also shared with us what are the limitations of this, and wound up as a researcher, where we should not use these numbers and data. I was actually currently doing some small work using this data set. And I would like to share with the audience here, the most important message I would like to share is that let's not put them sum up. If you sum up, you really miss out the whole message. If your message is to support the poor, then don't add up. Whether apart from the fact that whether those numbers are right or wrong, in spite of that, missing if you add up, you really don't create any kind of message for policymakers and also for researchers, because we as researchers we use it to do something else, which adds poverty as part of that whole process of growth. So I think if that is done, it would be really important. And the other part was, I was just thinking, I mean, of sharing with you, some work was done by Asha Kapoor Mehta and some of us, chronic poverty. If some references could be done, and Professor Radhakrishnan, somewhat recently, just before he passed away, so that to this audience, that might be useful to add to the discussion here later on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you want me to react to that, or
Yes,
yeah.
still further questions are forthcoming. I think we can you can react
Yeah,
to this.
sure.
Hello.
You can, yeah.
I'm Indira Hirve.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I have a question. Given to this specific situation of India, the exclusion of three important variables is really very serious. One is environment, because environmental poverty is extremely high in some parts of India, and that we have not taken care of. Secondly, unemployment, which is also very important. I understand that you are talking about outcomes, but these are in themselves are critical limitations of poor, and inequality. Inequality is something which Oxfam has brought out, that concentration of power can create a lot of exploitation and dependence, and that kills the democracy and basic fundamental rights and liberty of people. So I think it's important to consider these variables in some way.
Sir, also if I may add, I mean, the kind of livelihood that a household is engaged in is also has a very, as well as the kind of social hierarchy that one belongs to. Kind of livelihood by, I mean that if an agricultural labor household, or a, urban casual labor household, asset poor household, landless, and belonging to some lower social hierarchy, those indicators themselves explain the kind of, I mean, it will point towards the deprivation that the household might face. So that also need to be somehow uh, taken into account when we are identifying the multiple deprivations. Any other questions, please? Yes, there is a question in the chat box. Climate change is changing the contours of poverty. Recently, he visited some fisher folk whose coast has been washed away in Kerala. So, how do we account for that?
That's what I mean by environmental
Yes,
issues.
yes. So, you can respond if you want
Okay,
to.
sure. So thank you. I will go with the same order. I don't disagree with what all this audience says. So I endorse, but these points, but with some differences in my viewpoint. So now the first point is whether a single or a multiple indicator, a composite indices. So there's a part of academic, global, and we are seeing the history. Each has its own merit and limitations. So when I want to go a specific analysis, possibly yes, I agree. So a single indicator is a much better measure. But there are instances where you need to account for multiple domains. And as we know from the human development perspective, and multidimensional poverty is one such aspect. Having said so, I am not against, and I am very much in my note in the EPW which I wrote. So I say that it is very disheartening to learn that the consumption survey has been, has been stopped or has been derailed, and it is high time to continue with the consumption survey. So what multidimensional poverty takes, it will act as a supplement or as a complement, and not as a substitute to consumption. So this is my point on that. And the second and third question relating to environment. Yes, ma'am. If you look at my last but one slide, so I say the moving ahead with the multidimensional poverty. So how can we expand it? So I put both this point, both environment and unemployment, as two additional domains. So this is, but inequality is the outcome. Possibly we need to say differences between the the output and input to look into that way. So I completely agree. So these two domains should be integrated. Now, one of the advantages of this is, one can have their own data source if data permits. So they can have a large, because there are countries, this has also been integrated to the policy forum of some of these low and middle income countries, and they're not necessarily going with the global framework, only education, health, and living standards. So there have been more dimension to integrate it, and in that sense, so depending on the availability of data set, but definitely the data set which usually, as I said, also in the limitations, one of the limitations is this work has been more emphasized only on the one data set, because that is available in the NFHS data set. But NFHS is not everything it gives in the art. It gives only the mandate it has on the field. And similarly, yes, I agree that social differences, hierarchical structures such as caste and other systems are quite critical. But it is also more beautiful to look into this estimate of HA and MPI by different caste groups. So that calls for a policy intervention. How what is the level of contribution of poverty among scheduled tribe, among scheduled caste, not even among scheduled caste, but within scheduled caste. So because that's not a heterogeneous group, because so far we are considering this as a homogeneous group, but they are definitely not a homogeneous group. Yes, there are more how to account a micro level event such as fishing work and because of climate change impact. Yes, those are definitely issues, and that those possibly at this point I can say these are the limitations of the measure which vary.
Any other comments from the audience?
Sir, I have a 2 point. See, when we compare the 2015-16 to 2019-21, and one side, and we look into the dimensions which are being covered in the multidimensional poverty, we see that in this 5-year period, we have a tremendous improvement in some of the indicator like banking, electricity, and sanitation, and connection of LPG. So might we are looking reduction since it is aggregate. So the impact which you are looking in aggregate might be coming from these indicators, not from the health and education, which is another more important aspect. Other thing that which once I also wrote a paper on multidimensional poverty long back. So my point is that when we have 10 indicators and we give them equal weight, from according to me, it is a little bit problematic because each indicator has its own importance. So like water, if you have indicator of 10 indicator and we computing and getting a number, so we don't know the person or household deprived in which indicator. So this is one. And other things that, so like we have giving equal weight. So according to me, we should not give equal weight. We have just put the importance of indicator. Like if we have a water, that is most necessary things for survival. So it should have given more importance than sanitation, that is not that much important. Accordingly, we should give importance. So it prioritize the focus of the policy where we should give first priority, then followed by other indicators.
Okay, so I can respond to this. Yeah.
Yes, sir. You can.
I think yes, what Dr. Sukla says, I agree. And incidentally, I also happened to read, there is a piece by Jindres, so which said in the it just published in a I think a newspaper or somewhere. So it said that recent claim of spectacular poverty decline under the government is the it is the title. So on which, as what Bachaspati has said, I mean, what is, so it has also taken up to 1929 and from 5 to 6%. So it has also seen the reduction in each of these 10 indicators. And what you said is correct. A larger decline has been in the case of electricity, is 25%. On the other hand, in case of nutrition, it is just 4%. So I agree with the point. So this is also advantages of these indicators or estimates. It also points out to the fact that we are not moving in certain variables where we need to have move much further. So this is what is the also one policy variable which has to talk about. Now, second is coming to the weighting again. So this is the what weight to be given. Is also a kind of a debate and discussion whether it should be a PCA based weight or it should be a normative weight. So what is given is a normative weight. And what it can be, of course, there are different methodological aspects. So prior to this, say, UPHI or Alkar-Foster methodology, so you can see that a lot of methodological work has been done in defining multidimensional. So this lot of weighting has been methodological aspect has been given. But here possibly it tried to make it more simpler, but with the connotation that with the assumption that everybody possibly uses the microdata, which is not correct. So that is what is the
If I can add one point, we had argued earlier in our papers also that what is required is two-level well-being of people or poverty level of people. For example, at the local level, at the individual level, how the achievements is there and how the macro environment is there. Not entire macro environment, but taking some 2-3 critical variables is important. We had used it in calculating, computing these indices also for India, but that was long ago. But what is the argument is that individual having education or health is not adequate for his happiness, but the environment, the macro environment, macro variables also are equally important.
There is another question which talks about the strength of community institutions, social capital, and local governance as process indicators. And what is their role?
Yeah. I think this is a quite this is really a good question. Yeah, how the role of governance is possibly shaping the direction, because it is after all it's a more on the public welfare and how it put for that. Yes, I agree. So that is what is possibly it is more needed. So, but it is with the current frame of multidimensional poverty, it is more on the individual and household. It has limited scope for the local analysis. But what can be done is, yes. So let us say a governance at the one can at least do a state level analysis. How we governance is see as a good, as a bad, as a moderate, and how do the link with the multidimensional poverty reduction. So that is possibly done, and at the local level, yes. So yes, I do agree. They are quite critical, and they shape many of these dimensions. But unfortunately, the framework which is being used is at the individual and household level. But definitely, it can be linked with the governance either in a multivariate setup or in a aggregative analysis that can be linked.
Yeah, may I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, the whole exercise of MPI is a quantitative exercise. What is the scope for accommodating the qualitative aspects into it? Because as far as education indicator is concerned, I mean, for long time, these two things are being accommodated, like years of schooling and school attendance. And as we are all aware that there is the difference between this quantitative measure of education and the qualitative outcome of education. So how to accommodate the quality of education in terms of, qualitative thing? So.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. I mean, it is not easy to answer as well. So, but what I can say, the qualitative tools can serve as a tool to identify the indicators which possibly would be more appealing and robust to put in the quantitative framework. So, because what I feel is these are two inadequate indicators. So though these indicators has importance, but this definitely never capture, because the whole idea is what? That's what I said in the limitations. We are so tied to only one data set that has a different purpose and that has limited indicators on education. It is only two variables. What is the for each member? What is the years of schooling you had highest? Then whether a child in the 6 to 16-year age group is attending school or not. It does not say what is the quality of education the child is getting. So possibly what I feel, because to design because even in a small study, in a more robust fashion, identify the indicators that are more suitable to be integrated in the quantitative framework. So then possibly to take an area specific study on the quantitative domain of multidimensional. So that is what I can say.
Professor Mishra wanted to
Yes,
look forward to your comment.
Yeah, good morning. I was listening. I think Professor Mohanty's engagement with this topic has been substantial number of years now, and I was very pleased to see that he made a very, very interesting presentation giving an evolutionary account. And I was just wondering to say that merits and demerits of any measure is an engagement we have to do in terms of how it implies in terms of the outcome that we relate to. And I think multidimensional assessment has become fashionable now. So, because of availability of more information with us, as well as we are becoming more ambitious in terms of, how we can say that unidimensional measure have a lot of limitations. My question is like this, that when he was presenting, I think he gave a very interesting insight that how this evolved. In the process of evolving, one thing has been that there was a measure called intersection approach and union approach. And in fact, when multidimensional poverty has been initiated and championed by Sabina Alkire, I personally feel very disturbed by one thing, that you get a measure, you start comparing temporally, you start comparing in terms of its composition and many other things, but to situate that measure in a bound is very essential. It's not a bound of 0 to 1 that C defines or anything. We had an approach where there was an intersection in union approach. Theoretically, that provides an interesting bound to us, that we get least, we get the most. Am I right? So least and the most serve as a very good theoretical bound. If then that theoretical bound, the measure can be situated, it can perhaps make more eligible comparison, because after all, any measure that we have, it has only two purposes. One is to compare, and the other is to evaluate, in terms of implications. So when this all comparisons Professor Mohanty showed, I was finding that these comparisons are not, he of course told that in developed states it's like this, in other states it's like this, it has an urban bias, it has many other things which he demonstrated very clearly. So I would say that why is it that a measure like multidimensional poverty has not been situated in a bound to even value it differentially, which was there with us. This is called disconnectedness in literature. Because sometimes, when we do something, we get so overwhelmed by it that the literature connect becomes poor. I would like to have some reaction from Professor Mohanty.
Yeah, I think I agree with your point, and today I think is a platform where there is anything that I don't disagree. So because usually I disagree, but I agree. As I said, there are more limitations than merit, and this is this one, and possibly this is not much work has been done. Possibly once the from the 2010 onwards, everybody is fascinated, as you said, with the Alcar-Foster methods, and they forget about the past 2 decades of multidimensional poverty a concept and their methodological work. So it is high time to re-look into that, and that is because we also in the EPW paper, Professor Mishra is also co-author. So we also criticize the Niti Aayog's index to its validity and reliability. I completely agree with this. There is a need to look into the methodological approach. So that is, and then we need to see the how really how do they agree and how do they vary. So whether there is a kind of overlapping, or whether it is we are saying the same thing or we are saying different things. At least in that sense, we can able to do that.
I had a quick question. Hello,
Yes,
I'm Anandita. I'm a research assistant at IIM Ahmedabad. And thank you so much for the talk. It was extremely insightful. My question was, how does this multidimensional poverty index relate to vulnerability amongst people? Although I'm sure there will be a very high correlation between the index and vulnerability, but there might be still important indicators that are missing amongst indicators that are already there in NPI. So I just wanted to understand your, if you had a comment on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agree. Thanks. I think the concept of vulnerability, again, it's a it is the measurement, the definitions. It varies from researcher to researcher. So now the how does it put? So Sabina Alcare and Foster Alcare, they did not leave this concept out. So they also define, which I have not presented. So is also they define, if you want to look into within the multidimensional poverty context in terms of numerical number. So there is also procedure. There is a way to compute the vulnerability. What proportion of population are vulnerable? Like multidimensional poverty, they have a cutoff point of 0.3. You have a range of 0.3 to 0.5. They become vulnerable. Anytime they may come to as a multidimensional, or I mean the range of values based on which the numerical is given. That is a theory, as empirical part is concerned. So in that way, you can see here, if you see this is the UPHI papers, you can find it vulnerability also, the proportion of population who are vulnerable, who are in abject poverty in terms. So they also have the bottom I suppose decile or lower than percentage of population who are said to be in abject poverty. So those are the concepts which are embedded in there. But more to that, but I think it is vulnerability and deprivations. So is more or less are being captured in the concept itself, because the way these indicators, see, the once you define a deprivation, that does not necessarily means is a multidimensional poor. So here the concept of deprivation and poverty are not necessarily same. So that means those who are possibly are more vulnerable are in the net of multidimensional poverty. So I interpret in that sense. But if you want to go by number, so there is also they have a cutoff point of I think 0.2 to 0.33 for defining vulnerability. Sorry, I didn't put that in my slide because I don't know, because there are so many numbers and so many things. So I don't want to add more to that. But yes, you can go to that. So because of course to know about what goes inside that, and it is we have to read, because we have to, unless we know what has been done, then it is not possible for us to comment or criticize. So because when we want to say something and understanding the concept and make it better, so we need to first understand the concept. So that's what is there. I thought that was my basic objective. So I put that in that direction. Yeah, anybody else? Anything else, please?
No further questions? Participants from the program? So I think, should we call it a day, Vachaspati? You're muted. I think as a methodology, this presentation was very illuminating for us. I mean, how we can go about for the researchers, especially who are present here. And yeah, there is some, Mr. Manish.
He is muted. You are muted, please.
I don't have any questions, sir.
Okay.
I asked both the questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay, then. So we would like to extend our hearty gratitude to Professor Sanjay Kumar Mohanty for accepting our invitation and deliver a lecture on a very pertinent issue. So I was have interest to invite Professor Mohanty for since long, so, but there was problem of managing time with him. So it is such an important issue, sir. If we look into that, there is very important journal called Social Indicator Research published by SPIESR. And each and every issue we look into that, there will be some or other 1 or 2 papers on multidimensional poverty. And from every country, not from India, but from various countries, and they are using it in various ways. They are using in taking various indicators in education and computing multidimensional poverty, taking several indicators up environment, then computing multidimensional poverty. So it is used in very extensive way, and as Professor Mohanty told, that it has a large scope to expand it, and a large scope to redefine by our own multidimensional poverty. So thanks a lot, sir. It was very knowledgeable lecture for us. I would like to thank all the eminent scholars, faculty members, and students from various institutes for participating in this talk, especially Professor Amita Shah, Professor U.S. Misra, Professor Indra Hirve. And we also like to thank Professor Niti Mehta, Director of the Institute, for and faculty members of SPIESR and supporting staff for making this lecture successful, and for providing all the kind of support, especially to our IT department and everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you
for your
all.
engagement.
Thank you once again. I am really excited with the number of discussion and questions. I was thinking that it may not be much, and may not generate much heat, but I listen so many, so it shows that interest, and still there are a large number of participants still on the after 1.5 hours. So thank you all. So I think it's a great pleasure to talk to you. See you again. Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor
sir.
Mishra,
so much.
and Professor Indira, Professor Amita, and all for this all nice guests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. So I may leave now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.